Hey guys, welcome to the Professional Development Podcast. Today we have on a very special guest, Mike Michalowciz, and I pronounced that right, correct?
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Very good, cool. And I think actually on your website it has like a pronunciation on there, so I might.
That means everybody gets it wrong, right?
Yeah, everyone gets it wrong, and we on that pronunciation thing we make fun of my name. Michalowciz is the most popular. We have a voting, so I go by that too.
Nice. That's a good one. So. For those of you that don't know, Mike leads two multi-million-dollar ventures as he tests his latest business research for his books. He's a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal, a business makeover specialist on MSNBC, and he's a popular main stage keynote speaker on innovative entrepreneurial topics. He's also the author of Get Different, Fix This Next, Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, and the one that's most relevant to us, and I know Brad has read, is Profit First. So, Mike, we really appreciate you coming on.
It's a joy to be with you guys.
Yeah. So, was doing a little bit of due diligence first. So, saw online that Profit First, the one we want to really hit on, which is the best-selling book implemented by over 600,000 small businesses, is now a video book. And coming from a guy at a third grade reading level, I can't tell you how great that is to me. So how exciting is that for you?
Oh, it's really cool. The company that's doing it approached me and the publisher of the print book, which is Penguin Books, and said, "Hey, there's a new format that you should consider. So there's print books, there's audio like Audible, and then there's Kindle and those types." And he said, "Why don't you do video?" It's like a masterclass, but it's different in that it stays true to the essence of the book. They follow the chapters and guidelines, but it's presented with video and B-roll. You get to meet some of the people that were interviewed for the book. You actually get to see them on video. So I think it's a cool perspective.
That's awesome.
It seems like, and something that's great about your book is there's a lot of application processes to it, which is, what makes it so successful. So to have a video do that, explain it, makes it a whole lot easier for people like us who are more of like a hands-on type of approach.
Totally. And for most people, I think the interactivity, the visualization, like you see the numbers there. Profit First, I always intended to be super simple. This is not for accountants. It's for the antithesis of it. It's for folks that you log into your bank account, you see how much money you have, and you make decisions. Like, can we have a system that supports that natural tendency? And that's the natural tendency of almost all business owners I know. So we need a simple system. Profit First is not an accounting system. I think you'll confuse that, think that it handles all your accounting. You still will use an accounting system, but this sits on it like an umbrella. This is a cash management tool. It ensures you're consistently profitable. Then the accounting comes into alignment afterwards behind it. But we, as the business owner, don't even really need to worry necessarily about that.
Well, that was what was funny. We have another co-host here who I said, I'm reading Profit First. And he's like, I don't need to read that. I know how it works. It's revenue more than expenses, profit. And I'm like, no, man, there's a little bit more to it. And I think a couple weeks went by and we were having a conversation about it. And he's like, that's a really good idea. Like cool. He thought it was his own idea at first because he thought of it on his own. And I'm like, no, you just said everything that's actually inside of the Profit First book. So could you kind of explain that real quick for some of our listeners who haven't had a chance to dive in without giving away all the secrets, I guess?
Yeah. And kudos to your co-host for realizing that. Sometimes I get so entrenched in my belief that even if something alternatively presents itself that may be better, I don't want to listen to it because I want to stay with what I believe. So kudos to the co-host. Profit First, what I discovered is most business owners, including myself, go into business for two reasons: financial freedom and personal freedom. I want to make the money I want to make, so I don't have to worry about bills. And I want to be able to do what I want when I want, personal freedom. And it's ironic, those are the two things that least happen for business owners. We're not making any money. We're struggling check by check, and we're working our asses off. Yeah. So the first thing I tackled was this money issue. I'm like, if we go into business for money, we don't make money, what's wrong with us? And I kept on thinking what was wrong with us. And then it clicked one day. I was looking at the foundational formula of sales minus expense equals profit. I said, oh my God, there is nothing wrong with us. That formula is a lie. And when I say a lie, it's truthful in that it's logical, but it's not behavioral. Yeah. It is human behavior. When something comes last, it's the same as saying it's not important. If you love your family, you don't say, yeah, I love my family, I put them last now. Or your health matters. I decided that I really got to get healthy, so I'm going to put exercise and health last. No, you put it first. And I noticed that profit, we call it the bottom line or year end. These are all terms that I can wait until the end of the year. So most of us wait till the end of the year. There's no profit. We get pissed off and we hope it'll happen next year. So the profit first system, we simply flip the formula. Sales minus profit equals expenses. How this works in practice is every time revenue comes into your firm, you take a predetermined percentage as profit, you remove it from the business, you hide that cash, you run your business off the remainder. And by taking your profit first, you ensure permanent profitability.
That's
Exactly.
awesome. And so I'm one of the people that actually haven't gotten to read your book, but Brad's been talking about it for a while. But I did listen to, what was it? You were on the Profit Answer Man like a couple of years ago. So I was listening to that podcast, and there were some pretty impressive percentages about like how many people actually know what the fuck's going on, like with the finances within their business. Do you remember those numbers?
Yeah, I do know this. I know that there was a study that was instigated by U.S. Bank and backed in part with the SBA. The SBA identifies small business as a company that does $25 million in annual revenue or less. That's my company. It's perhaps many of the listeners or all the listeners. I don't know, but it's a lot of business. There's over 30 million of us in the US. There's over 300 million now globally. And what the study identified is that 83% of small business is in check-to-check survival. The vast majority of businesses are in a cash crunch, which means they don't have enough money to pay their bills, pay their employees or staff or team, let alone pay themselves. So the owner's skipping on something, and it's usually themselves. So they start to hate your own business. The thing you started to serve you, you loathe it.
Yeah.
That 83% was mind-blowing. That means there's 25 million plus businesses right now, as we're doing this, that are struggling, don't know how to pay bills tomorrow, and they're not taking a profit. That I want to fix that for everybody.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I had, which I think you're kind of already answering, is why do you think most businesses fail? Is it just a total cash flow system where there's not enough cash in the system to pay these bills? And what advice do you give to those people to avoid that?
Yeah, I think the reason the majority of businesses fail is that they don't have a profit system, which is a little bit different than cash flow. Cash flow is collecting more money. It's how money flows through your business. But the optimal cash flow is collecting more than you're spending. But even that's a problem, meaning some businesses will say, oh my God, we need money, do collection calls, and we try to get money in sooner, but they're not still profitable. So the little tweak is we need a profit system. Every single transaction, there must be profit baked into it. Profit, I say in the book, profit is not an event. It's not like it's one big transaction. Profit is a habit. Every day, we got to be putting a little bit more away, a little bit more away, and that becomes sustainable and it grows on a big scale. Most owners try to sell their way out of things. And sadly, and it gets me upset, there's some pretty like famous entrepreneurial advocates that say sales cures everything. Total bullshit. Sales actually causes stress for an organization. Like, Brad, you got a CNC company. Could you imagine your sales doubled or tripled tomorrow? It sounds wonderful, but now you have an obligation to deliver this. Do you have the manpower to do it? You got to start cranking and turning out those parts like fast. And that becomes a real problem. Sales causes organizational stress. Yeah. So what we need to do is we got to balance. Sales brings in cash, but we need to be extracting cash from that and profitability, which then gives us runway and it affords us the ability to grow our business healthily. So the reason most businesses fail is they don't have a good profit system. I'm vehement about that.
And for somebody, you've experienced this firsthand. Like, I think that's something that people need to understand is you've had two businesses that you built up that were successful that ended up failing. And is that where you learned all these processes and habits that you established and wrote books about? Or was it something that somebody else taught you, a mentor or somebody like that?
It's pretty much all the above. So I had two companies that I built and sold. One was bought by a Fortune 500. Another was a private equity deal. Neither of them were really healthy when I was building them, but I was lucky that I was able to sell them. They had some tangible assets. I built a third company where it was a disaster. I was an angel investor. I was clueless. That was a train wreck. And I've built other companies now. I have two companies, well, 6 companies that I'm a licensee or owner of, but 2 that directly they own that are extremely healthy and growing explosively. And it's been the lessons from all that stuff. The failures are great because they enlighten what I didn't know. And that's about 99% of stuff I thought I did know, I didn't know. And the successes are often from experiments. So what I'm doing is, I'm looking at my own businesses, and I have access to mentors and coaches. I interview other entrepreneurs constantly, and I try to look for these common threads of what works and what doesn't work. And when I see common failure points, then I go out and try to seek a solution. I wrote a book recently about marketing, and what I found is most businesses that do market ineffectively. They're frustrated that those ads on Facebook, yet again, aren't working. And so I invested the last 5 or 6 years just researching that one topic, well, along with other topics, but that one topic and creating a book out of it. So what I try to do is I don't consider myself a great creator of entrepreneurial ideas, but I intend to be a great curator of ideas. Profit First, it itself is not a new system. It's ideas of the envelope system that was used in the old world. It's the pay yourself first principle, which is taught in personal finance. I took a lot of these elements and put them together, started testing them in business, and said, "Oh, this is the formula, the new way of doing it in business." So I see myself as a curator, I guess.
So the envelope system, were you or are you a big Dave Ramsey guy?
Yeah, but before Dave Ramsey existed, so my mother taught me the envelope system as a kid. She's from Germany.
Really?
And so when she had envelopes, and when she would go food shopping, I remember she had money in the food envelope. She would pull that, and she always worked with that envelope. And she followed these exact principles. So when she worked at a factory down the road, and when she took home money, she would cash in that check. She would divide up into these different envelopes. So there was always money distributed. What was interesting is she had income volatility, like a business. Sometimes she worked part-time. So sometimes there was more. If she was sick, she worked less. So whatever was in the food envelope, she bought the food with, which could be like, rice and beans if there was a bad month or a bad week. But Germans like to celebrate with liverwurst, which is disgusting, freaking disgusting. But she would buy that if the money was there. And so very early on, I learned, set this up. The Dave Ramsey system is awesome. I'm a big proponent for it. And I'm sure he'd be the first to share that that's not his system. It was written in The Richest Man in Babylon. It was written about in Think and Grow Rich. He just presented it in a new, fresh way that's serving so many people. I love his work.
Yeah, sure. So what about kind of speaking on that, there's in terms of business, well, I guess his is more personal. I won't really get into that because I'm always curious to someone like that likes his work, because I like his work, but I don't agree with everything, right? I don't believe in like zero debt whatsoever.
Right. I have some things I do a different approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But again, I don't think he necessarily believes that for the business side. So I'll kind of skip that one. But so we talk a lot about like hard work, how hard it is to actually be an entrepreneur, right? You got to wear all the hats. It's not for everybody. It can be scary going out because you got to play everyone from sales to marketing to finance, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, like, from your perspective, like, what was your turning point to where you knew that you were going to be a business owner?
Well, I knew it was when I graduated college. So when I graduated college, I thought I'd get one job with one company and ride that out into the sunset, because that's what my father did.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get a job after college. So I came home. I worked at a local computer store. It was not the job I wanted by any stretch of imagination. And this is not how you should start a business, but this is how I started. One night after a couple of years working there, I went out for drinks with another guy. I got boozed up, and I'm like, this freaking guy and that owns the company. He sits in the back of the little computer store smoking cigars, counting money, and I'm working my ass off in the front. So I'm the sweat, and he's making everything. I'm gonna start my own business. But with a few cold pops in you, you're like, I gotta start a business. So I left this drunken message saying "F you" to the boss. The next day I woke up with a little bit of sobriety, and I was like, I did not mean that. And he's like, "F you, you're on your own."
Yeah.
So I burned my bridges. I don't suggest doing that, but that's what I did. I also was married and had my first son in my early 20s. So now I had to feed 3 mouths and start a business. And it was terrifying. But admittedly, that was the best thing I could have done, because I had to make it successful. I had to make money quickly and fast. I hustled like I never hustled before in my life.
Yeah. And go ahead, Brad.
I find that super interesting. So I only have a couple employees here, but I push everybody I know, like, in the entrepreneur aspect. So for somebody that was an employee, we were like, fuck this, I don't like it. You went out on your own. Now you employ, I'm sure, quite a few people. do you still have that where you're looking for like you push your employees now, like, hey, if you have this idea, you have this dream, go work for it? Or are you like just trying to like keep your employees like in your little nest?
They're my domain. Now, so we have 22, 23 people. I encourage everyone to start their own business. And unless they don't want to.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to. I mean, what I realize is the number one job that you and that we have, the number one job of entrepreneurs is to create jobs, not to do the work, but to create the work for other people. Because there's a huge portion of the population that says, I just want to get there at 9, leave at 5, and go home. And they deserve that, and we can create that. There is a portion here that says, I want to explore entrepreneurship. Maybe I can make more money this way, or maybe I can just live life on my own terms. So we have, of our 20 folks, I would say probably 6 or 7 businesses here, side hustles.
Yeah.
But the president of our company, her name's Kelsey. She had a side hustle for about 2 years, and she's like, you know what? I'm done being an entrepreneur. I'm all in on this. And I think the fact that she was given that freedom and discovered something she didn't want, I think she even enjoys it more here. There's no regrets. I don't want anyone having a regret saying I should have, could have.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome mentality to have, and not one that most have. You know, a lot of business owners that I've talked to, they're huge on these non-competes because they're afraid that somebody's going to go and start like a competing business or doing something. And so like I own a recruitment company, and I've always said, it's like, I'll never make someone sign a non-compete. Now a non-solicitation, a little bit different. Non-solicitation is like, you're not going to take any of my clients. You're not going to take any of my people. It's like, but it's one of those things, if somebody's going to start their own business, they're going to do it no matter what. Right.
It's true.
And so the best thing you can do is like train them, give them the best experience working for you, give them freedom, flexibility, ongoing development. And if they end up doing it, great. But like I said, it's like, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it eventually. So you might as well leave a lasting impact on them. And then as you're creating all these systems, you realize that you can find somebody else to do it.
I used to, in my first business, I was in tech services, computer systems. And I started focusing on hedge funds. That became my niche. And it was interesting. I didn't know much about hedge funds, but a lot of hedge funds come out of hedge funds. So someone's doing really well managing a chunk of money, and they say, I want to start my own business. The hedge fund owner will go to that hedge fund and say, we'll sponsor you, or we'll support you and give you some more funds because we want a piece of the deal. So they kind of start splintering out. And I was like, oh, maybe that's an opportunity too. If someone here really feels compelled to start their own business, maybe I can even be the launch source. I know them so well. I have a degree of trust in them. Maybe I can invest in them. But the other thing, to your point, is, if you love someone, let them free. They're going to do it anyway. And if they feel the freedom that they can be open about it and there's no secrecy, there's actually greater trust. My team members, even today, we had our morning huddle, and Erin's one of our team members here, shared some successes she had in her side hustle business. And we're all like cheering her on. She can be very open about it. It's not something you hold secret.
Yeah. Brad, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess I kind of want to talk a little bit about employee, not necessarily retention, but I feel like you as a person have like a culture that you've built around yourself. Like, it's very niche-y, it's very particular, it's quirky, it's cool. How important do you think a culture is for small business owners to have that loyalty moving forward? Because I know Matt's business, I think like my business, we have a culture that like our employees are almost like best friends. And I do think there is like a thin line there of like, okay, well, where do we draw a line between we have a great culture and we're friends, but shit also needs to get done?
Yeah. So culture, that's a great question and observation. So culture exists in every business. The question is, are we actively defining it or not? I also agree there needs to be a line between friendship and business, because my friends can ask favors that compromise me, but it's appropriate. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you keep a secret? Tell no one about this, but I need this or that. Like, that's what a friend will do. But if that enters the business environment, now there's this lack of openness. It's real challenging. So my colleagues here are not friends, but ironically, I would say they're better than friends. I trust them emphatically, and we're here to move the business forward. We actively define the culture by documenting it too. So we have a couple of rules. Number one rule at our office is no dicks allowed. And that means we're not going to deal with dicks, but we're not going to be dicks. it's a dickless community, which is a horrible thing to fucking say. That was actually horrible.
Very, very 2021.
Yeah, we're proud to be
took the words
dickless.
out of my mouth.
We're proud to be dickless. But when we interview for employees here, and employees, it's not just full time; it's part time. It can be contractors. So I'm using kind of that phrase. That's the number one value. We just brought a new guy on, Scott. I think a week or two ago. And the first question was, is this guy not a dick? Like, is he cool? And he's like, he just fits in. He's fluid. He doesn't take himself so seriously. There's no ego there. He's just cool. And then we have some other ones, like, is he positive orientation versus negative, half full versus half empty and so forth. By being that selective at that stage of bringing people on, there's a very fluid comfort with everybody here. They have different approaches and styles, but there's a base comfort with each other. And that confidence is there. But we use it not just for hiring employees. The culture presents itself on our website. Like, if you go to my website, you'll see, like, oh, this guy's unabashedly himself, and maybe he's a little too goofy for me, or whatever. But this is who this guy is, and you see that consistency everywhere. It's very important to actively define it. You already have it. We just need to define it and adhere to it, I think.
That's awesome. And it's one of those things that allows you to, when shit hits the fan or something goes wrong or you're at a crossroads, it's like things like that. It's like, okay, well, now that we're defined who we are, it's like, is this or is this that? So
it's true.
I'm sure that helps a lot. Oh,
it totally does. Even with customers, we put them through the parameters. If a client does not comply with these components, we're going to jeopardize ourselves. And listen, I've gotten greedy and saw the green on the other side, but ignored this. And we had one customer who was a dick. It was a woman, and she was a dick. And it's like, but we're making money off of her. No one liked her. Her own employees didn't like her. And like, what are we doing? And finally, I said, well, we're getting rid of her. And I walked back out of the office after firing this client, and the single hand clap was there. And my colleagues were like, finally, we got rid of the dick.
Yeah. That's crazy, because literally right before you jumped on, I was telling Matt a story about a customer that I'm dealing with right now, that he spends a lot of money with me, but every single time we deliver something, he finds something to bitch about. That wasn't in the the print, wasn't in the description. That is a new problem, and it's like every single time it's like something this guy has to bitch about, and I'm like, on that. My wife tells me about it, even because it comes home at home, and it's
the consequences are massive, right?
It's like, well, when do we just like say, see ya, find somebody else to do it, or if you want to come to our terms, you can come back.
Yeah. So I define it as if we are taking money from someone and we can't stand what we're doing, it's called prostitution. We're prostituting our business. So we got to make a stand. And the cost is more than just. We had to redo work or something. The cost is the emotional consequence that you're going to sleep thinking of this dude, and you're waking up thinking about this dude. This is horrible. So and the other thing too is when we get rid of a bad customer, it opens space to service more great customers. And it's hard to serve more customers if you're distracted by this one. Yeah. So I just lay it out there. The short-term financial loss that you may experience is returned tenfold. But the other thing that's interesting, when I try to fire a bad customer, sometimes they become a good customer. Like I tell this person, hey, it's unfortunate we failed to meet your expectations again. We've elected to no longer serve you because we apparently can't meet your expectations. Here's an alternative firm. And to meet your expectations, we'd have to double our prices anyway. Goodbye. Yeah. Then the customer's like, oh, hold on. I don't want to pay double. Or I don't mean, there's any problems. Everything's okay. Then say, well, if everything's okay, we'll never have a problem again, will we? We'll continue to serve you. And if we are going to have a problem again, we're not the best fit for you. And sometimes that shock can wake them up to being non-dicks.
I got you. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to start that tomorrow.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Yeah. So Brad, did you have anything before?
No, that's all I got. If you want to jump into the OnlyFans inquiry.
Yeah. Our OnlyFans inquiry, it's an opportunity for one of our fans to ask you a question, you to help them in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and read that off. This one is from Tawanda from Zimbabwe. And interestingly enough, not to brag, but we're a top 10 entrepreneurship podcast in Zimbabwe. Kind of a big deal over there.
That's awesome.
Not tooting our own horn or anything, but
toot.
Toot.
Yeah. So the professional development's motto is, if you're not growing, you're dying. I'm just now starting my personal and professional development journey. So if you could pick one personal or professional development book for me to start with besides your own, what would it be and why?
Okay. So I would start with How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. It is a classic on managing your mindset. And I will tell you, the biggest determinant for success, I am convinced, is how we manage our own mind. Mastering our mind is everything. And that book is a great primer. There's a lot more out there, but I would start with How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, Dale Carnegie, and just look at the results you start experiencing when you apply it.
Cool. Love that. And I really love, I think we're probably about 70 to 80% business, right? But I love whenever we get one that's more of like living a fulfilled life or living through purpose, stuff like that. Yeah. So, actually, Mike, I think we are right at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. your time.
Split.
Yeah. So, no, we appreciate you coming on, Mike Michalowciz. And we'll hopefully keep in touch.
I'd love to.
Thanks for coming
Guys,
on.
thanks for having me.
See ya.
See you. Bye-bye.